Good morning, everyone. My name is José Ferran, and you are listening to the Indo-European mythical scheme of the final battle in Ancient Greek Mythology. So, welcome everyone, and special thanks to all of you, of course, and especially the organization staff. So, let's begin. So, what's the Indo-European mythology? Indo-European languages are the biggest linguistic family in the world and also the best studied. Since Sanskrit was discovered by Westerners in India, linguists have tried to reconstruct a mother tongue where Latin, Greek, Russian, and other languages came from. And this reconstruction has been proven quite valid because and through comparing all the languages and finding some systematic correspondences, it can be reconstructed, this language. And so, as a language is the own communication system of a social human group, if there is this proto-language, there should be a proto-society, an Indo-European society with its own folklore and mythology, and as the comparative method has proven valid, in order to reconstruct this language, the same comparative method can be used to reconstruct this society and this mythology. In this case, anthropologists will try to find all the shared elements, all the common elements, and with all that, from all those elements, maybe a mythological scheme in legends can be reconstructed, a proto-pantheon, etc. If we have like the god of thunder in Greece and in Scandinavia, maybe we can reconstruct this common old Indo-European, Proto-Indo-European god of thunder. This Indo-European mythology can be, this reconstruction, this comparative method, so can be used for reconstructing gods, pantheons, but also legends, myths. And Stephen O'Brien in 1976 proposed that there was a common eschatological myth among Indo-European peoples. According to him, it has 10 episodes. Some of these similarities among these traditions, among those myths, were also observed before by Ulrich as early as 1902. But O'Brien was the first to establish all these elements, all these shared elements, and he based his reconstruction upon two Germanic myths. The first one is not exactly a myth; it's a pseudo-historical battle recorded by Saxo Grammaticus, the Bravelir battle, and the other Germanic myth is the Ragnarok. Both are Scandinavian and also medieval, both come from the Middle Ages. He took a Celtic one, an Irish one, the Second Battle of Mac Turet. It comes from medieval Europe. He took another one, the main core of Mahabharata, the great Indian epics, the story, the rivalry between two groups of cousins, the Kauravas and Pandavas. Finally, an Italic, namely Roman case, that's the Lake Regilius battle. It is more or less like in Bravelir battle because it is more a pseudo-historical account, because this battle appears in Titus Livius' History of Rome. It should be history, but all these historical traditions in Rome, there really are myths that were converted into history, but later Roman historians, they're myths. The episodes that appear in all these myths, and therefore, according to O'Brien, can be traced back to Indo-European times, are the following. I am going to read them. First of all, a character A arrives at the community. He is either divine or royal, depending on the narrative and the concrete story. The A's father is maybe of foreign origin or unknown ancestry, but always his mother is an esteemed member of the community. Then A becomes king by default. He should be the king, or maybe because of the throne being empty. Then A mistreats his subjects or persecutes his predecessors' descendants. His predecessor will be named B. Then A undertakes a series of constructions, including fortifications. Then A treats foreigners, normally those from the same origin as his father. He treats them very, very well and becomes their ally. Then a final event forces his subjects to exile this character A. And then we have a new leader. We are going to call him C. This new leader may be A's nephew, always through his mother. So yes, it's his nephew, and in the European terms is nepot. It's the same origin of nephew in English, nieto in Spanish, nebot in Catalan. Or maybe this new leader, C, this new leader's father, was slain while he was young, or was killed maybe by this foreign king, this character A himself. Then the exiled king A finds refuge among the traditional enemies of the country. So normally they are also these enemies are these foreigners that were allies to him or from the same family from his father. Then it begins a long truce which follow the exile or banishment, and enables the two sides to prepare for the final battle. And then it arrives this final battle that occurs in a well-known field, also involved the death of numerous heroes on both sides, and finally leads to the death of a large number of people and gives rise to a general cataclysm. So because of that, according to Orion, it is a eschatological model. There is those problems, and then there is a final, very epic battle, and then the final cataclysm. 22 years later, Stefan Achian added another element in Orion's scheme. Chronologically, it was the 10th element, but obviously it was the 11th one. So, and it is that one. In the final battle, there is a character endowed with the ability to harm, paralyze, destroy, or terrify at a glance. He saw also that the sixth and eighth element, there are some variations that are shared between the Indian version of the myth, the Mahabharata account, and the Armenian version, the Battle of Erbandava. In that case, in both versions, it is not A who is exiled, but C. The main characters are exiled. And there are them who found refuge among the country's enemies. Then Daniel Bray, 2 years later, added another element, the final one, and it is as follows. There is a period of social breakdown, disorder, and lawlessness that either heralds or it is initiated by the final battle. And he also stated that there is a Greek example of this scheme, and that myth is the Hesiodic version of Titanomachy. Well, so this is the scheme and some variations on the scheme, some additions. I'm going to analyze and talk about this. I could be here talking for an hour or two, but it's not possible, so I am going to highlight the main points. First of all, I am going to focus on the Greek case because normally Hesiod and Homer, the greatest and oldest Greek poets, are considered to be heavily influenced by the Middle Eastern cultures. So maybe this Titanomachy is not the best example, the best myth in order to for that kind of comparison. And maybe we can extend this doubt to the Indian and Armenian myths, because all these groups are surrounding the Middle East, not the Indians, but the Iranians do, and Indo-Iranians, they are kind of the same group. There's a lot of relations, commercial, cultural relations between the old Persian and old India. So they are surrounding the Middle East. Middle East was the cradle of civilization. So their culture were very powerful, and they influenced all the surrounding peoples. So maybe we can think that maybe European cultures are like more conservative and maybe more Indo-European than all this. But I am going to deepen into this question a bit later. Whereas we can say this especially about Greek culture, in fact we can say it about the official Greek culture, the poetic culture, Homeric culture, literature culture, but not, we can talk differently about the folklore, the city folklore, the localist folklore. Normally it is said to be more Indo-European, and well, in fact, the local myth of the return of the Heraclid that talks about the origin of the ancient Sparta kings and all the ancient kingdoms from the Peloponnesian, this myth talks about their origin, and this myth fits perfectly into Ryan's scheme, even better than the Germanic material. So here we can see that the Greek material is better for comparison than the Germanic material, and normally it was Germanic materials were thought to be more Indo-European and Greek, like what I was saying before, more Mediterranean. So in this case we see that's a parti pris, it's not true. But especially in this case, so also we have to think that the Greek material, Titanomachy, yes, that's true that maybe has some Middle Eastern or heavy Middle Eastern influence, but it fits into the scheme. And this Greek version, this Titanomachy, doesn't talk about the end of the world, but the origin of the kingdom of Zeus and the current era. And it's more or less the same case in the Heraclid myth. So I think that in the other materials, and also the materials that come from cultures and that are nearer to the Middle East, they talk about the origin of kingship. And in fact, there are some characteristics that appear only in the Greek, Armenian, and in the myth that are keener to some characteristics that appear in the narrations, the old Middle Eastern narrations that talk about the origin of the current dynasty. The oldest example is even older than all the oldest Indo-European materials that we are dealing with now. It is the case, the statue of Idrini from the 14th century before Christ. And also some of these elements appear in the book of Judges and the book of Samuel in the Bible. So we have these kind of problems. And now I am going to talk even more in the conclusions. So well, finally, in order to conclude, in the Greek, Armenian and Indian version, there are some elements in common, some variations of some elements that are shared between the legends from these groups. I already commented the 6th and 8th element. There is also the third one, because in all these cases the A takes the throne by deceit, and also the 7th one, because especially in Greek version, especially in the Indian versions, the enemies, the two sides that will fight in the battle, are either grandfather and grandson, or maybe they are cousins, because of the evolution of the term nepos in these languages. In Greek, there is not such a way as nepos to refer to the grandson or to the nephew, but there is an epsios, that's the cognate of this word, that's the evolution. It is a derivative of this word with a prefix, but it means the other who is nepot with me, and in Greek means cousin. So in Greek, nepot changed the meaning to in Greek or in Greek it changed the meaning into grandson, as in the Indian case, Armenian case. But so we have these similarities. Maybe they come in the myths, maybe they can explain because of some connection, because of some filiation of the Indian, Greek and Armenian language. Well, Indian languages, Sanskrit, all Vedic Sanskrit. But also, I already said that they are a group of peoples that lived around Middle East. Well, India, it's not exactly the case. It's Iran, not India, but India and Iran, they're heavily connected. So maybe it is a shared innovation, it's a conservative trait, or it's a Middle Eastern influence or a contact influence between them. So we're not sure, we cannot know that. And also the earliest example of these myths, not these myths, but these narratives, come from the Middle East. The case of Idrimi, it's older than all these Indo-European myths. So maybe the origin of these myths, that I am sure that it really deals with kingship, because of what I have said, maybe from the Middle East it expanded, it spread out to Greece, Armenia and India, and then we do not know the exact relationships between the other Indo-European groups. We know that there are some Germanic words that come from Slavic languages and Iranian languages, so maybe this kind of myth also came from other sources. But again, all the European versions of the myth do share some threads, some variations in the same elements as in the Indian, Greek, etc. So we can see the dialectical, geographical division that divides Indo-European languages. We also see that division in the variations of this myth. And also, again, we are not sure of why there are these differences, because all the myths that are compared come from different times. So we are not sure if one of them influenced the other ones. So, well, I think that I will conclude here. So thank you all for listening to me. And again, and in this case, I'm sorry for my bad English. And it has been a challenge to me. See you.